But yeah, let's dive a little bit into the 2025 season here.
Yep.
Right now, there's a single race that's been announced. It's the DRL Invitational coming up in February. Couldn't help but notice you're not on the roster. Talk to me. What's up with that?
Yeah, it's a great question. One thing I will say is I watch your stuff, and I don't remember what's his name who was on. No disrespect to him, but when he said that, this is the best roster we've ever seen, there's no one really missing from the list, I took that a bit personally, just because, I know that not to be true. And that's not to disrespect the current roster, by the way, because I think everyone who's on that roster does deserve to be in DRL, just to be clear. A lot of big names, but so I'm not in the 2025. I don't know what they're doing. They're calling it the race, the season. I don't know what DRL is doing these days. But to be clear, I actually did get invited to come race in the 2025 Miami race. There's some matters at hand, which are why I didn't participate. But, we'll see. There's still a potential future where I come back to DRL. I mean, there's guys who took a year or two off and came back as well for other reasons. And these are a little bit different than that. But not going to be racing in Miami, which is going to bum me when it does happen. Right now, part of me really doesn't care, to be honest, just because of some other things. But I do know when the race happens, there'll be that itch of me where it's like, oh man, like this is an IRL event. I could go win this. I've had great luck in Miami. So unfortunate to not be there, but it's an amazing roster that is going to be there.
The roster is looking really good this year. It's super young. Do you think so? Gab's out for good. Like he announced his retirement. You said that you potentially could come back and in a future year. Do you think that it would have to be under certain stipulations of like what the league looks like as far as you only want to do IRL seasons, or you're kind of open for whatever? It just kind of depends on whatever you're going through right now.
See, I like you asking these good questions, and drone racing needs more people like you. It does, and here's the thing, right? It's good questions. It's not the same. Well, how did it feel racing? And so here's my answer to that. Like I think that I certainly am not done drone racing. I went and did a pro spec inaugural race this year, and people were like, man, if Vanover can just come back and get on the podium. I mean, I'm not going to say names, but it just like, I'm glad they said it, because honestly, I probably wouldn't have been as motivated to train and fly. It just, I think that the point that I'm getting to is people saw what happened in the simulator over 3-4 seasons, and they just assumed that I like lost either motivation or just kind of lost the talent. And so like going to the pro spec race, that was exciting for me because it's like, boom, this is real racing, and this is all on the line without sim. And I was able to win that race when people thought it was going to be the young guys or Heads Up or Amari even. And I was able to go out there and I dominated that race. I mean, if you watched it, I had to win 3 times, because I guess they just didn't, they wanted to see the third time. I don't know. There's some rule about hole shots or anything. But with that, to answer your question, I would certainly love to come back to DRL. I think DRL does represent the pinnacle of the sport, at least for drone racing specifically. I've had a lot of good experiences on DRL, but I've also had some bad experiences.
All right, I hope that you're enjoying this so far. Just a quick reminder, what you're watching right now is actually a part of a full 80-minute interview that I did with Vanover. If you're interested in seeing the entire conversation, you can watch the whole thing over on my Patreon. Just click the link in the description below. Now, let's jump back in.
I've had a lot of good experiences on DRL, but I've also had some bad experiences with the sim. The last real season in my eyes, which of course anyone who hears this is going to roll their eyes or be biased if they've flown in DRL. But the last real season of DRL to me is 2019. Or if you want to count any of the IRL parts of the previous seasons, that's fine too. I won all of those. If you do the math, I won the points on every single one of those. So there's no lack there's no lack of skill. There's no skill issue for sure. There's no motivation issue as well. But I just think that it needs to be like not a waste of time to DRL or to the fans. People who root for me, I know they want to see me do well, and I feel like it would be kind of disrespectful to the fans if I just came back and didn't fully try.
Dang, I love that mentality. Do you back in 2019, was it the Racer 4 or was that still the Racer 3?
Back in 2019, it was the Racer 4. So that was the first year that the Racer 4 became a thing. It was 2019. Yep.
Got it. So you really, on paper, you are the best Racer 4 pilot in the world.
Yeah, I mean, so I have 6 level wins of I hate that I have to specify IRL, so I'm not going to do that after this point. It's just going to be level wins and race wins. We're not going to even count sim, but because I haven't won a sim race too. So yeah, so 6 level wins in DRL. The next closest person to that would be a tie between Gab, Jordan, and Heads Up for 4. I know my drone racing statistics very, very well. In terms of podiums, I have the most podiums in DRL history with Racer 4. So, I mean, I love that drone. I think one of the advantages I had in 2019 that maybe some of these other guys haven't had, and I'll give them some slack for that, is everyone in DRL in 2019, whether they were previous pilots or new pilots, was all a new drone, right? And we all had the same amount of batteries, the same amount of gear given to us at the beginning of that year. So it was nice. It felt like I was on the same playing field. I mean, to be clear, I got my Racer 4 2 weeks before Miami. I had 3 batteries and 1 drone and like 5 sets of props. And this is before now, years later, we can like find ways to kind of work around that, build like a prig or something else. So like it was not easy to practice for DRL. I think everyone really was not very well practiced going into the start of that season because we just didn't have enough gear. And as the season went on, we got more gear from DRL as the Racer 4 kind of evolved and developed. And it was really fun to kind of master that drone. So I think it definitely gave me a little bit of an edge. I think that the biggest edge I got going into 2021 over guys like Heads Up, and this just shows how skillful they are to be able to come in and do as well as they did, is that not only did I know how to fly the Racer 4 because I'd flown thousands of batteries through a Racer 4, but I also knew what it was like to fly a Racer 4 in DRL because it's completely different than when you're just out practicing with multi-GP gates and fabric versus flying in a big stadium at night, and going 100 yards one way before making a hairpin turn the other. It's a whole different environment, and we'll get into it later, but I think that's what's making the new, whatever they're calling it, season race really interesting because you look at the roster and pilot-wise, you'd be like, it's hard to pick, but then you start to factor everything else in. You get some kind of telltale clues of, I think, who's going to do well and who won't do well.
Yeah. The roster this year is looking fire. Black and white was gifted from you to a young man, Aaron Silas, Propsicle. Yep. Does he... I mean, obviously the shoes he has to fill are huge, but does he have your blessing? Like, how do you feel about the black and white drone being in other hands?
I'm kind of hoping it's not the disco theme and I don't think any of the pilots would vote for it because it's a very hard drone to fly behind, not only because historically it's very fast, but also because it's very disorientating when you're flying behind it. It's like flashing like crazy. Allegedly, I would never know. Actually, one time in DRL, fun fact, we had a practice heat and they had the LEDs wrong on the quad in front of me and it was in disco mode. They just had like me and someone else swapped. Yeah. And it's fine because you're still flying the same drone. It's just different color. Right. And I remember being right behind it. This is 2019, I think. And I started laughing. I'm like, man, this sucks. I would hate to see this all the time. But I'm happy for Propsicle because I think also style wise, flying wise, he's a very smooth pilot, and not that the other guys aren't smooth, but his style of flying is a lot. I feel like it's kind of inspired by mine in some way. Maybe he wouldn't want me to say that, but I definitely see some inspiration in the way he takes lines and flies smooth through gates and stuff like that. And I think that gives him a big advantage going into the DRL season. And honestly, out of everyone on the roster, I think he'd be the one I'd pick to represent the colors. I kind of selfishly hope it's not disco. I don't think they'll do disco. I think that's probably done now. But just for him to go and represent black and white, I'm excited for him. And I even reached out to him and said, hey man, selfishly, I want you to do well. You're representing the colors, and so if you need advice or help, let me know. Don't take this lightly. I'm here to help you. So
that's very cool of you to do, and also obviously, he's a phenomenal pilot. I mean, he's been drone racing for years and years, but really cool of you to reach out and say that to him.
Yeah, I like the kid, man. When he started in the scene, he was one of the guys I said could be one of the best. He was a fan of mine. I'm sure he's still a fan of mine. I don't say that disrespectfully. He's really nice and was always very humble around me and just seemed like someone who really took the sport seriously. And I respect that. So all the props to him, and I hope he does really well.
Nice. I see what you did there. If you're looking to learn more about drone racing and get involved in the drone racing community, another great free resource is the Drone Racing Network page on Discord. There are channels to both talk about professional racing going on around the world, as well as a place for you to show off your own racing content. Additionally, you can ask questions to pro pilots and find members in your community to race with. It's our one-stop shop for all of your drone racing needs. You can scan this QR code or click the link in the description below to get plugged in.